Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, and welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And today's guest is Sandra Estok. She's the founder of Way to Protect and the award-winning book Happily Ever Cyber book series and a cyber literacy series for children, which are fantastic. I've seen them. I've looked at them. Oh my gosh, yum, yum, yum. She's also a keynote speaker, a corporate trainer, and has over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity, IT, data privacy. Her mission is to empower women take charge of their cyber safety so that they can have a peace of mind online and live happily ever cyber. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you so much for having me, Teri. So delighted to be here.
Oh my goodness, we've been playing offline, and we've just been okay. So for those that are just listening to this podcast, I'm actually going to invite you on this podcast to go over to the YouTube video for this episode. And here's why. I changed out to this really beautiful new hot pink outfit, and my husband came down and he's like, "You look like a 1980s plane stewardess." So I'm just gonna get your input. Is it true or is it not true? Okay, like. I'm just going to rock it. Okay. We're going to rock it. And on this podcast, there are no emergency exits. Okay. You got to stay until the end. You are a captured audience. I'm sorry. That's how we're going to play. Anywho. Okay. So Sandra, welcome to the show, and share us a little bit about you and your story here.
Yes. Obviously cybersecurity, identity theft, and cybercrime, it's what I do. But my story starts when I was 11 years old, and my mom and I were evicted. So the only place we were able to afford, my mom was able to afford paying rent, was a shack. And to my surprise, when I was introduced to the shack, I thought it was the ugliest place for me, because it was in a neighborhood where all the other houses were nice. So that was the only place that looked like that. And it did not have water, running water, or even a bathroom. And growing up in that environment, today I know it was a gift. Why? Because I was able to see things beyond, my own reality. Like the possibilities were in front of me. And one time I was being bullied by some of the neighbors. And in that moment, I made a choice. And my choice was that I would choose happiness no matter what. And again, everything in your life happens for a reason. And I truly believe that. And being in that house, being in that neighborhood, being, exposed to that really gave me that awareness. And my teacher said that, happiness is a choice. And anyway, so I chose happiness no matter what, and live an amazing life. I have lived an amazing life, and I love my life today. I'm so super grateful for everything that has happened.
Yeah. And I think that's a great perspective, right? Like we can all relate to, making the choice to choose happy. But when you come from a place and space where there was limited resources, and your mom did, I believe, probably the best that she could at the time that she had, with the resources she had. And, I think sometimes those humbling, beginnings, create a transformative experience for us, because we can look past, I don't know, the material items. We can look past and really, dig deeper with people and really find, the gold within, each person. And so I'm sure that was, a powerful what's the word, imprints in your brain, and
Mhm.
I'm guessing that's had an impact on the rest of your life as a result of that.
Absolutely. And I, I think now that I have studied, I have, learned so many things, throughout my journey. I realized as a kid, I did not have access to books. I did not know what visualization was, or, you know, how your thoughts, how you can create realities. But in a way, my intuition knew that, because all I did was dream that I had a house with toilets, that I have running water, that I was, that I was this amazing life. And of course, many decades later, I live in an amazing house, and I have more toilets I can use at a time. So
I love
can
it.
only use one at a time, of course.
Yes.
But I mean,
Yeah.
that taught me so much, that really, where you put your attention and how you train yourself, your mind, and the things that you want. And if you focus on the good things, um, your reality can change.
Yeah. And I think you're speaking my language now, because many people know that I talk about, incorporate the universal laws, one of them being
Mhm.
the universal law of attraction. And, what we think about, we bring about, right? And
Yep.
so,
Mhm.
you didn't know this, but, I think this is where, God, spirit, angels,
Yes.
universal life force energy, pure positive energy, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
this is where we get those downloads. And so being an
Mhm.
11-year-old, you didn't know any of this stuff, but this is your download. This is kind of your tapping into your calling, your purpose, all of that. And
Mhm.
you could see past that into your beyond, who do you get to become to
Yeah.
really serve the world? And so, we may not be consciously aware of why we're doing this, but I just truly believe that our paths are really created for us. And,
Absolutely.
yes, we have personal choice, and yes, we have personal freedom to choose. But I think, when we're tapped into that, we're guided, we're gently guided to this. And what a powerful story, and where you came from and where you're at today. And you and I had connected through an event a year ago, and everyone at the table, they were talking like, you got to connect with her, because she's done some incredible things, and the life that you have led, and you're creating a powerful legacy.
Thank
Now,
you.
if I remember correctly, um, what got you into this cybersecurity? If I remember, wasn't it that you had your identity stolen and it was a hot
Yes.
mess? Okay.
Yes, it was. And
So I'm going to transition us a little bit here, because I want to hear this story too, because I just remember being like, oh my goodness, like,
yeah.
and I think this is a powerful story and message, because I have the ongoing joke in my family, and no, not that this is anywhere near what you experienced, but I've had my credit card
Mm.
compromised, my work
Mm.
one for one
Mm.
in 1 year. I had it compromised 5 times.
Oh.
Seriously annoying, and then lately it's been, and it was so funny, my personal one had never been compromised, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was so excited, like 1 week before the expiration date, because it's like it like expires every 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is. And I was so excited, going, oh, I was like, oh my God, I'm actually gonna make it. I'm gonna make it to my expiration date. Like, this is like a time to be celebratory, right? You know what happened? Like 4 days later, my personal one got compromised. I was like, okay,
Oh
take it back,
no.
take it back. It was really funny. It was really funny.
Wow.
But I also had my sister-in-law had a really bad experience with a stolen identity situation.
Mm.
And it ended up costing her and her family over $250,000.
Mm.
It was very traumatic. It went on for almost 2 years. It was
No.
criminal activities mixed with stolen identity, mixed in with
Mhm.
felonies, mixed in with, I mean, it was just a
Mm.
hot mess that
Mm.
finally they came out of it. But if they wouldn't have had the resources, it could have been very, very bad, And so,
Yeah.
but I want to dive into your story and hear a little bit more about this, because I think with what you just shared and like this experience, I mean, we're talking about the making of greatness now, okay? Because I think so often people don't see this when they meet you on the street. They don't see this other stuff. And we oftentimes think of success and we're like, oh yes, well, oh my gosh, Sandra's doing awesome. But we don't see beyond that. We don't see
Yeah.
the making of success. And so I love to share that piece of it too. So dive in and tell me about your story here that you experienced.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I moved into technology, and, throughout my many different jobs, my last corporate job was with a company in Venezuela that relocated me to the United States. And that was in 2005. So I was like, my dream job. My family and I moved, and we from Venezuela moved to the Midwest.
Yeah, I laugh because I'm from the Midwest. So
I know. So from an 80-degree all year around, my whole life to, living in the Midwest was shocking. But I survived my first winter, Teri, and I went to visit my mom. I was in my, on my flight returning home. We were landing in Miami when the captain announced that Homeland Security officers were boarding the plane. So I handed my passport and my work visa. It was just the first year of my relocation, like brand new into the country. And next thing I know, Teri, I'm walked by Homeland Security off the plane. So two really tall, Homeland Security officers, and I'm in the middle, and I'm walking through the airport.
People that you want to be escorted by. Now, I might be wearing the. This is why I picked this dress for you. This is why I picked this dress for you.
This is the theme.
It all makes sense now. Like, so you can make fun of my dress, my husband Steve, but this is why. It's clearly tying in the theme.
Absolutely, your intuition guided you.
I love it. But these are the people that you do not want escorted anywhere in life. Okay.
No.
Yes.
No. So I, of course, I get into the room, and no, there are no phone calls. You don't know what, I'm not sure what's going on. I have a flight, and I'm about to miss my connection. My husband is waiting in Chicago. And Teri, 10 hours later, 10 hours. Yes. Mm-hmm. I'm handed my passport, and it's revoked. So my husband and I, we rushed back to Venezuela. We're trying to get a new visa. So we are in the embassy, and I have all the support from my former employer, attorneys, and I'm in this interview in the United States Embassy, and the officials kept asking me, why were you in China? Who do you know in China? Who's your contact? And I'm like, I've never been in China. I have no idea what they were talking about. But the thing, Teri, that happened was a cyber monster, which is how I use the name. I coined that name. A cyber monster was smuggling women into the US using my identity. So, yes.
And it had been going on for a while, right?
So, yeah. So for 6 years, I have to prove that I was the real me. Over and over and over. And, I was not in cybersecurity at the time. I was in technology, in information technology. So I really didn't have answers. I really didn't know what was happening. I was so afraid to, for what was happening. And, that situation, which is very common on identity theft or cybercrime, it really took a toll on my emotional state. And, it almost broke my marriage. It almost ruined my career. It was a hot mess for me. And
I mean, I can't even imagine that. 6. And so how long was it from the time that they revoked to the time that you got it reinstated? Like how long of a time was that?
So I left the country right away. Like, we have to leave the country because my visa was revoked. It was 2 weeks probably that it took the attorneys to get me ready. went to
Wow.
Venezuela. I came back about 2 weeks, like it took a month when I came back. And the thing is, actually, no, it took 2 weeks because I missed one part of my story, which is when they gave me in the embassy, when I explained and I'm like, I'm not a smuggler. And they believed, they were like, oh yeah, this is just, an incident. So they gave me a new visa. And they gave me my, I have a new passport, a visa, and I came home and I'm thinking everything is okay. 2 weeks later, and I had to go to Europe. I'm returning, I'm landing in Chicago. I get off the plane and boom, back into the room. So that's when I realized that it will, over and over, I have to prove I'm the real me. And we talked to attorneys, we tried many different things. And it took me 6
I
years.
feel like once, and now that you're in this, this is your specialty. This is like kind of your gift to the world, which is kind of always interesting how this always comes up. And
Yes.
time after again, the thing that we resist, the thing that is the most difficult in our lives usually becomes
gift.
we becomes the gift, and it's the mess that becomes the message. And I can't imagine like how that must have been to like constantly prove to yourself who you are. Funny enough that this is like so perfect timing, because yesterday we are in this contract agreement, and it was interesting because the guy that I'm working with, he's like, well, I gotta verify that you're you. And I'm like, he's like, I gotta contact this person and contact this person. So I'm making these connections. He's like, well, you can't. And so I was like, literally on my subject line, I'm like, a connection to verify that I'm real. And then what is it? The song, like the Eminem songs, like, will this real Slim Shady please stand up? And I'm like, so I had that song in my head. Will the Terry Cardinal please stand up? Please stand up. So, but I mean, to and I didn't even have any, but I can't even imagine like time and time again, because I'm guessing that it's still probably, has it resolved itself, or is it still every once in a while comes back up?
No, it resolved. So I became a US citizen. So a happy moment in my life.
And she is not, folks, she is not a smuggler. Okay, let's be real.
Yes, so I have been cleared by Homeland Security.
Stuff that comes up, is there any weird stuff when you Google your name? Because
it used to be. So when I Googled my name, everything was in Chinese, everything in that time, at that time, because, they always clean and they always try to eliminate those things. So you won't see it today, but my name, everything was in Chinese, everything. At the time, my name was registered as companies. Like I had a business between China and Latin America. I was exporting goods. I was like, I would just see my name and L like limited at the end or incorporated at the end, and then Chinese characters. So I didn't really know what was happening, how that my name was used, or I mean, there was probably a lot happening.
For years. It was used for years, like wow.
Years.
Well, I am so grateful that this has come, to a place where there's resolve to it. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. And I think that's, I try not to even talk about the situation. Like I was not, I never said identity theft. That word didn't even come into my brain because it was not in the news. There was not like a lot going on the cyberspace. So I became a US citizen, 6 years later. And shortly after, there was an opportunity for me to join the cybersecurity team in my company. And I was like, oh my God, I joined, and it was like somebody turned the lights on in my brain. When I understood what happened, like why cybercrime happened, how it happens, who's behind, everything about identity theft, cybercrime, and all the things that happen online. And it was incredible. It was a gift within the gift. And understanding my own story. So I worked for corporate for many years, and I built programs and I built teams, and I work in different parts of cybersecurity, had certifications in the industry. And, there was something within me that there has to be more. this story happened for a reason. And in 2018, I remember my promise to choose happiness no matter what. And I decided to open my own company, and just to create the world in the way I see in the cyberspace. And there is a lot of fear, there is a lot of resistance, and we don't like technology, or we're like, it's not like sometimes. But the reality is everything is today managed by technology. So I found a way to connect technology and to see technology in an empowering way, in an inspiring way, in a way that is fun.
Yeah. Well, taking that trauma into, something that can be used and
Yes.
and transform people's lives, and see it as a
Mm-hmm.
positive thing, and see
Yes.
the gifts in it. I love it. Which is keeping truth to your promise, right? Like, is, choosing
Yes.
happiness, right? And I love the name of your company, right? Happily Ever Cyber, right?
Yes.
That's
That's my
fantastic.
book. Yes. Happily Ever
So,
Cyber. Yeah.
so I think this is so powerful. And again, I, I know I've been victim of it, and I know
Mhm.
many people listening and the listeners that are here, they've been victims of it to smaller degrees, obviously,
Mhm.
or maybe larger degrees. I mean,
Maybe larger. I mean, there's
who knows?
like
Because like I
you're
just had a good friend that she's still dealing with some stuff that's kind of residual that
yeah.
has messed up her. They went in and they went into her bank accounts,
Yeah.
and so now it's just like, getting loans, and like, I mean, it's mostly around her banking, but it's
Yeah.
still, it takes a toll. And like you said, like
That's mhm.
it was, impacting your marriage, your relationships. I mean, everything. It has a direct impact on everything. And so this is something to be taken seriously, and it's something to, protect ourselves as much as possible. So I'm curious to hear from you. What are some tips or tools, or that people can, really support themselves in keeping themselves on, either online or wherever?
Mhm. Yeah. So thank you for that question. I love, every time I'm asked that. And when we hear the word cybersecurity or cybercrime or identity theft, in my experience, what I have seen is, the first action, it's always going into a technical tool. Like, and most of the questions I always get is, what antivirus should I have? Should I have a firewall? Should I have this um, thing, or should I encrypt my data? Always goes into technology, which of course I love, and I believe that there is a place for technology, and I use many of those tools. But with my experience, is the first step, it's not really in a tool that is not within you. And it took me a long time to get to that point. Like, it was a journey for me to discover that. And distractions, I would say, it's one of the reasons why identity theft and cybercrime happens. That's why I believe it. My case, I was not as present, I was not as aware. And I took for granted, if someone asked me for my credit card, or my passport, or like, I did not have a mindset around that. Um, so it's not that I wasn't smart, it's just like I didn't know what to do or how to protect. And I think the same is today. So we go online, and there are signs online that we can get trained to identify. We start developing, I call it inner cyber, and it's like your own tools. Like, you start seeing things when you get an email, and the senders. Like, there are things that you can identify right away.
Yeah.
And I have this phrase, Teri. Like, I believe that you know let me just reframe it before I tell you the phrase. So that we are what we eat, like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree. I agree with that. Yeah.
And you are what you think,
Yeah.
like, right? But in reality, what I think, and my conclusion is being that you are what you click.
Mm.
And why
I love that. You are what you click, right?
Yes.
Because if you're clicking on certain
Yes.
things, you're inviting
Yes.
in certain things, right?
Yeah, and
certain
that is
things that are
empowering.
safer than others, right? Some that are, that are going to be
And
fine, but you're right. Absolutely.
and
And
it's a choice.
sometimes it can get really tricky because and again, it goes into the fear mode because I, not too long ago, had this, Microsoft email coming. So I just got off the phone with them and we were dealing with a thing. And I like literally like 3 days later, after doing this whole, like, I mean, it was like an 8-hour like marathon with Microsoft. It was super fun. Anyways, like 3 days later, I get this email and it's like urgent follow up. Hey, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh gosh. But I didn't realize that the last letter, instead of Microsoft, it was like there was an extra letter or
Oh, yeah.
eliminating a letter. It was like one letter off, right? So I thought it was Microsoft, right? Because it looked like it, but there was one letter off, and I was like, ooh. And I took a further look because I was like, meh. And I was like, okay, spam. And so then I did a quick Googled that name, exactly how it's spelled, and then it's like, spam, spam, spam. So I was like, and delete, right? But I think
Yes, that's
brilliant. And
amazing. That's great. I mean, I'm so proud
because
of you.
but I will tell you, I have been that person who's opened it up out of curiosity. I'm like, I can't be that bad. And then I get all these like, Trojan, whatever crud on my computer. And so I've done that. Okay. But I think this is great. And I think this is tangible and it's tools that we can use, is just that awareness and
Yeah.
being,
I call it the I am.
Their job is to create that fear. And if we stop and react versus, I'm sorry, respond versus react, that's going to save us a lot of misery in the end. And I know there's a temptation. Like, I love getting gifts, right? I love opening gifts. I love the act of opening gifts, right? And there's something joyful, right, about this, but you got to stop. Like, you cannot just like rush to it and open it, right? And so I love what you said, you are what you click. And so this is something that we can all do without having technology, without having upgrades, apps, downloads, whatever, all this stuff. It's just being more aware and more conscious of what we're clicking on. A, our searches, but B, in our emails and everything else, and the apps, even the apps that we're clicking on and downloading, everything that we are doing and checking out, like, making sure that there's, we're looking at the, safety, security thing. And there's been times that I've been on an email, or a website, and I went to go click to purchase it. And there was something, even though it had all the signals that it was safe and it was secure, when I went to go through it, it literally said, this is not a secure site. And so I ended up choosing to click out of it, and I ended up calling the company because I was like, and the company was legit and, whatever. And it worked out, but I did it a different way because I was like, I'm not sure, because this stuff happens all the time, and
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fraud and criminal activity is happening all the time online. So
every day.
I just think that's such a great tool, and just awareness to have around that, because we do get distracted. And the tip about where you're giving your information to, because I have in the past been open with, oh yeah, do you need a picture of that? You need this. My email was hacked at one point, and every password that I'd ever sent, all of those accounts also got hacked. And so now I don't. And if I send someone some information, I'll send one part here and another part here on, secure sites, or I'll tell them over the phone, or I found I don't have any information that would connect it. And if they get a little bit, it's not enough to like do any damage. But it's just being mindful of that. And so where can people find out more about you and connect and just hear more how they can, how you can serve them?
Absolutely. So they can go to sandraestok.com. And in fact, I have sandraestok.com/cyber tips. So they can get, 6 cyber tips they can implement in less than a minute. So they can get that.
Oh, juicy. Yeah, yes. I love it.
And they can have my checklist too. It's going to be available for them. And yes, I think there are so many things we can do that can be so empowering. And I gotta share this story, Teri, because one of my one person I was working with, she was really terrified of technology and overwhelmed by the number of emails, like weird messages. And when that happens, she will just turn her phone off or close her computer and walk away. So we work together. I have an online course, inner cyber. So she went through that. But this day happened. She sent me this email and she's like, oh my God, I discovered 10 phishing emails and scams that were not that obvious, but that they were, in her inbox. And that was a moment where she's like, I can do this. Like, I can recognize when someone, and I can make a decision whether I click or not, whether I answer that phone call or not. And it's a completely different place for her. Like, she's empowered. She feels so like now she wants to know more. And that's where the journey starts. So then you can, like, you're curious about, what can I do to improve my productivity and should I have this, or should I have this tool, or what else can I do? And now technology, it's not a burden. Technology is not boring. And that's what I really love about the work that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. So we'll put all of her contact information into the show notes. Sandra, it is a delight to get to know you more here. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.